Right, we're gonna make a start. So I've got a few props on my mat today. It isn't that you need all of them, you can use any of them in place of the bolster, for example. So if you've got a bolster, that'll be great. Even a rolled up bed pillow will work in place of the bolster. Just something that's got a bit of purchase, isn't gonna go completely flat, but also doesn't have corners like a block. Some of the poses you will be able to substitute the block for the bolster if it's, for example, under your hands or underneath your ankles, then you don't necessarily need it to be super soft. If you are doing the forest yoga classes, then you will have encountered the roll, which is a rolled up, taped up yoga mat, and that can be used in place of the bolster in a lot of scenarios. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, you're welcome to take that and grab whatever you need. To begin with, you're either going to be laying down in any resting position that works for you, or you can be seated cross-legged. If you have come into practice today working with tight hips, or the space between your ribs and your lower back feels really tight or achy, I recommend either sitting on a block or starting supine. So choose somewhere or something that you can be in that lets you be comfortable. So maybe sitting elevated, maybe laying down, and then be there for a moment. If you're seated, instead of allowing your head to fall forwards, maybe you think it's some kind of reverence, instead lift your head up. Get your skull stacked atop your shoulders. If you're on your back, draw your shoulders down away from your ears. Take any movements that helps your hips and back feel like they're settling. Wherever and however you are, close your eyes. Start to deepen your breath. And before you jump straight to Ujjayi, simply allow your breath to be deeper and more conscious than it was a moment ago. So we'll reserve that whisper sound until a wee bit later. But for now, focusing on that really expansive breath quality. As you breathe in this way, become viscerally aware of the space between your ribs and your pelvis. So front, side, and back. Today's class is going to look a lot at side bending poses, working for this session in particular, our usual mix of longer holds, restorative poses before starting to move into a gentler flow base to get you moving a wee bit more. In this class, which is styled in a way that's meant to be gentle, you could be in a restorative pose and be hammering it and making it the most arduous and challenging thing and painful thing that's ever happened. So the onus is on you as the practitioner to develop your skillfulness that you are undisturbed by the pose. So even as you're sitting, maybe there are some small adjustments that could be made to help you sit a little bit more upright. Or if you're on your back, maybe putting the feet flat to the floor is the assistance that your back needs. So choose something, do something like that. Now that ability isn't restricted to the start of your practice. This is something that I encourage you to do in every pose that we're working today. How can you navigate the poses in a way that allows for this curious expansion, but with a physical focus towards the space between your ribs and your pelvis. Begin to switch to an Ujjayi breath, that audible whisper quality sound. As you switch to Ujjayi, deliberately build in some abdominal breathing, allowing the abdomen to move first and chest second, and then the exhale, abdomen moves first, chest second, so belly pulling in. Use this to guide your awareness, but also to create a bit more movement towards your lower back, your hips, your back ribs, and your abdomen. So use deep breathing and skillfulness in every pose to reveal this area to yourself throughout the practice. So it seems like we're getting a bit of a shopping list. We've got a few items already in our basket that we need to work with for the rest of the session. Know that the poses that we're doing today, none of them are arbitrary. They are there so that the next is facilitated by the one that came before. So that by the end, the poses will all have related to one another in some way. Almost take delight in spotting how the poses help one another. That will help you design your own practice when you kind of get to that point of being able to do your own practice. Alright, now my supine people, roll to one side, bring yourself up. And cross-legged people, unravel the cross of your legs. You need to grab either your roll or your bolster would be great. Some of you, if your back is feeling particularly pinchy, so around sort of SI joint area, you might want something extra between your knees. You're starting in a passive side bend. For the side bend, the bolster is coming underneath where your ribs are meeting your lower back. So it's not under your underarms. Also make sure the zip isn't into your side. So essentially taking one arm long towards the front and allowing the head to come down. You might find that the head coming down is too much and you want something else under the head, either a folded blanket or a bolster or a block or just a little something. The aim is to create a bit of an opening through the right side ribs. So I'm getting like a weird pinching at the inside of my right hip. So I might want to take the prop or support between the shins to help create a slightly different feel in there. If you've got a buckwheat bolster, you can like press the seeds into a bit of a different direction so that it's less growly. So see if that works for you. The right arm can either be down on the ground or to create a little bit more side bend, take it overhead. Either fingertips or palm can be down. Switch on abdominal breathing. When you switch on your abdominal breathing, you'll probably be able to register that the left side of the abdomen is compressed and the right side expands a little bit more to accommodate. Allow yourself to also observe that as the left ribs take pressure, there is an opening sensation on the passageways of the right nostril. So using this passive side bend to create space through the right side ribs and into the lower back. Any pinching on the left side, move the bolster up or down. It just might be on an uncomfortable part. If you have the right arm overhead, bring it down alongside your head. Press into that, slowly begin to bring yourself up. Come onto all fours between sides, so just refreshing that somewhat. Once you're on all fours, feel for a neutral spine by pressing the floor away, scooping the chest forwards and sticking your butt out. The plane of movement is side to side. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, squeeze your right ribs towards your right hip. So your right shoulder squeezes towards the right hip, but resist swinging your hips to the side. Inhale, bring the torso through center. Exhale, squeeze left ribs towards left hip. Head veers to the left. Inhale through center. Exhale, side bend right. Inhale through center. Exhale, side bend left. Inhale through center. Now this time as you exhale to tuck your tailbone down, let the low and mid back lift up and push into your hands. Inhale, tilt the pelvis the other way, pointing the sit bones up, lift the skull. Exhale, press into your hands, round into the back. Inhale, tilt the pelvis the opposite way. Lift the skull. This time, exhale, pull belly muscles in, shifting towards the neutral. Turning yourself around, so coming down onto that right side, taking the right ribs down. I'm going to turn myself fully around so that I can still face you rather than going out of the window, as much fun as that would be. I'm on the ground floor, so it would be very exciting. So right ribs are coming down onto there, making sure that my chest isn't facing up. It's very much a side lie. I'm going to put the props in between my calves just to give a wee bit of extra support. The right arm is going perpendicular to the body, head is down, left arm is coming up and over, or if that's too strong on the shoulder, you are still opening up the ribs by having the arm in more of a rest position. This pose is animated by your deep breathing. In particular, the abdominal breath. So as you work here, a good thing to explore is that same thing we were doing in seated, like what needs to happen to help you lengthen through left side lower back. Maybe even straightening that top leg and lengthening it away will work. Maybe there's an adjustment that needs to happen with the positioning of the bolster or the props that you're using. Bring the left hand back alongside your head. Press down into that, bring yourself up. This time, move the props out of the way. Instead of coming into tabletop, we're coming into reverse tabletop. For reverse tabletop, set the feet up so the legs are bent about 90 degrees. Hands are behind you. Fingers can point outwards if you are more wrist sensitive. If the wrists are alright, turn the fingers forwards, but grip the floor with your fingers. Hypermobiles, the tendency is to lock the arms here. Have them so they are pliable. Inhale, lift the breastbone up in between your shoulder blades by squeezing your shoulder blades back. Exhale, allow the shoulders to ride up, mid back is hanging down and tailbone tucks a little bit. Inhale, lift chest, lift the skull. Exhale, round into the back. Inhale, lift chest. Exhale, round into the back. Inhale, lift. Exhale, round. This time, shift towards a tabletop position. So you're swinging yourself around. You're moving into child's pose. This child's pose is going to side bend, so it's going to have a side bending quality. If your knees are unhappy in child's pose, you can do this as a cross-legged forward bend and get the same work by taking the arms to the side and lengthening the side body. Alternatively, if it's the knees that aren't happy with it, you can set up your props. So you can set up your bolster. So you've got that, so maybe the knees aren't in their full bend, allowing you to start navigating into the sides a little bit without. So go ahead and choose. If you're putting props in but you don't actually need them or they're just there for fun, maybe you don't need them. Get a feel for working without. So wherever you are, whether it is cross-legged or whether it is more of a child's pose base, that can be knees together or knees wide, take the arms forwards. Set your forehead down. I'm setting my chin down so you can still hear me. Allow the arms to relax initially. Allow yourself to get familiar with the shape. Very slightly stick your butt out so there's some activity in the pelvis. And then switch deep breathing on. Pay particular attention to abdominal breathing. I'm repeating, my chin is down so that I can speak so my mouth hole is not on the ground, rather than tucking my chin and it would be on the ground. Inhale, lift up your chest, lift up your head, look at your hands and press into your hands. So in this position, you're physically pressing your pelvis back, but scooping your chest forwards. It seems a little bit paradoxical, but it is doable. So use your hands to push the pelvis backwards, but simultaneously telescope your chest and your skull forwards. Maintain this level of activity, but walk the hands over about 45 degrees to the left. Reach with the right hand a little bit more. To create a deeper side bend, yes, you can have the arms over to the side. If you push with your left hand, you can push the right ribs to the right. If you pull with your right hand, you can engage into your lats, which will give you a little bit more sensation to that right side of your ribs. Let the neck relax, head is between the arms. Inhale, walk your arms back through center. Exhale, walk the arms over to the right. So you can either allow the chest to come down, leaning the ribs to the side, or effect a push action through your right hand, pressing the left ribs to the left. Combine that with a pull action with that left arm, left elbow, and left ribs are shearing to the left. If you've done other classes with me and done flank stretch, this is a very similar pose, very similar creature. Inhale, bring your arms through center. Bring yourself up and then narrow the knees. Bring the knees back towards more of a hip distance. Knee sensitive, make sure you are padding the knees appropriately. I'm on 2 yoga mats so that I've got that extra pad. Inhale, press into your hands, lift the skull, point the sit bones back. Exhale, tuck tailbone down, round into the back. Maybe things are starting to feel more pliable. Inhale, tilt the pelvis the other way, sit bones point up, lift the skull. Exhale, tuck tailbone down, round into the back. Inhale, tilt the pelvis the other way. Pause. Pause in more of a neutral rather than that cat arch. Deep breath in. Focus the weight even on the knees and keep it that way. Exhale, thread the right arm down underneath the left arm. Coming down onto the right shoulder. Turn the right ear down. Inhale, press into your left palm to help open into the twist a wee bit more. Now this is where this twist can stay. Otherwise, left hand comes towards the front left corner of your mat to recreate that side bend feel. More flexible day, that left hand can travel towards the right side of your mat. If you're on fingertips, you really creep the fingers over so the twist and side bend evolve somewhat. Inhale, bring yourself back through center. From neutral, exhale, thread the left arm underneath the right. The right hand can stay pressing to create this active twist. Or right hand can come forwards, continuing the pressing action but feeling that side bend. Or walk the fingers over towards the left side of your mat to assist in rolling the ribs up towards the ceiling. Wherever you are, your depth should be gauged by your ability to do deep breathing and to be somewhat comfortable. Inhale, come back through center. From hands on your shoulders, go ahead and shift forwards into more of a plank position. You'll probably feel like it's too short. So extend one leg back and then set the knee down. Send the other leg back to meet it, then shift forwards into that plank position. Inhale, push into your hands, lift your skull, point the sit bones back. So instead of being in this like tucked tailbone position, very slightly stick your butt out. Deep breath in, squeeze your hands toward your legs, Exhale, bending the elbows, elbows above the wrists, shoulders away from the ears as you lower down. Prop up on your elbows. As you prop up, the focus is space in the lower back, so between side ribs, back ribs, and pelvis. Turn your knees in towards one another. Exhale, tuck your tailbone towards your heels. So you're getting that cat action. Pull with your arms to help stretch your ribs forwards. And at this point, you're asking yourself and sensing with yourself, is there any compression in the lower mid-back? If there is, or it's sharp, this pose exists on a spectrum. What happens if you take the elbows an inch further forwards? What happens if it's 2 inches forwards or even further than that? Aim to do a pull with the arms that slides your ribs forwards, combined with a tuck in the tailbone, so you get that sense of space in the lower back. Intermediates, if with that pull the space feels okay, consider lifting the legs, but without changing where the pelvis is sitting. So still in a tucked tailbone, but engaging the buttock muscles and the thighs to help lift. Take another deep breath in. Exhale, lower. Bring your hands under your elbows rather than your shoulders. Press to all fours, so it's going to be that slightly longer all fours. Lunge. Exhale, bring your left knee to your left upper arm. Step the foot outside your left hand and take the hands so they're more underneath your shoulders. I've got my right toes tucked just out of personal preference. You're welcome to have the foot flat. Inhale, scoop your chest forwards like cobra. Exhale, strongly tuck your tailbone down, and then see if this is where you stay. Perhaps you're coming down onto your elbows, perhaps you're grabbing any props that you have nearby so that you can come down onto the elbows. Tendency here is to drop the right side of the pelvis down to create an illusion of depth. Like, yes, one bit of you has gone closer to the floor, but no other part has. Instead, get the weight into that left foot, squeeze the left thigh in towards your ribs, and strongly tuck your tailbone down. Resist the urge to collapse and round into the upper back, and instead scoop your chest forwards. So we're using this pose to get into your legs, but also to help free up some of the tension in the front between right side of pelvis and abdomen. Inhale, come up onto hands. Now this might be where you are keeping props. Start to work your left leg straighter, pelvis is above the right knee, and you might be moving the props back so you've got something to put under your hands. Blocks work really well here. Inhale, scoop your ribcage forwards. Exhale, instead of rounding your back to try and get close to your front foot, do the action of sticking your butt out, lifting the chest and skull, and then re-control that deep breathing. Like, bring that back. So remember I said we would be starting restorative-ish, then moving. This is more active, but we are doing longer holds. So near to like an 8 to 10 breath hold. Sometimes standard practice would be about 5 breaths. These are the building blocks that we're going to be using. Now, at the minute, your pelvis is facing forwards and the knees and hips are tracking about hip distance. When we turn side on, which is happening next, then that may not be doable. Well, it won't be doable. So we need to do a bit of a change of positioning. Inhale, bring yourself up. Pelvis and shoulders are still facing forwards. And then start to turn your chest to the side. This right leg has to swing around. So we're turning it outwards about 90 degrees, but the foot is traveling inwards. Your left foot is now in line with your right foot, which is, not great, because the knee is now the part underneath the hip. So go ahead and take that left foot so it's more in line with your right calf to knee area. So we're in this side bend. Foot flat or flex, really your preference, whichever gives you more stability. Inhale, bring the left arm up, lift left ribs. Exhale, draw your left hip towards your right. Reach the left arm out and bring the hand either down onto your shin or onto props. So this might be where you've got your hand on something. Inhale, bring the right arm up and over into the side bend. Now, some of you may not need your hand on the bolster. You might find that hand coming down is fine. I'm not a big fan of hand pushing down into the knee joint, especially if you are on the hypermobile end of the spectrum. So you might appreciate something more hand-sized you can take under there. Inhale, roll the right underarm towards the ceiling. Exhale, wrap right shoulder blade towards the underarm. If you're doing the action tuck tailbone here, if anything, very slightly stick your butt out and see if that liberates a little bit more of the lower back. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, bring the hands down. Turn your left foot back towards the left side of the mat. Walk the hands around. I realize this is not the most glamorous flow you've ever done. Step that foot back. Come into plank and then set the knees down. From this plank position, deep breath in. Exhale, squeeze the right knee towards the right arm. Step the foot outside the hand and get it so it's on the mat. Take care this leg isn't winging out to the side. There's a time and a place for that, and it's not right now. Draw the right hip back. Then begin to lower into the hips. So in this initial lunge, personal preference presides whether you've got the toes tucked or not, perhaps coming down onto the elbows. Either way, look for a more extended spine, so there's more back bend than there is forward bend. Switch deep breathing on in a way that gets to the left side of your abdomen. So using that abdominal pressure, combining it with tucking your tailbone down and squeezing the left thigh towards the front of the mat. Half split. Press that right foot into the mat and start to shift your hips back. Perhaps you're taking something underneath the hands if necessary. Lean the right hip over to the right. Inhale, scoop your rib cage forwards, lifting through the skull. Exhale, stick your butt out to help lengthen through the lower back. This is one of my favorite ones to do with a block. So if you are using the block, go for hands under shoulders, even if it's slightly too far forward, it just feels unnecessarily precarious. And especially before we transition to the next pose, sense the space between your ribs and your pelvis. Are you scrunching into your lower back, or are you able to lengthen through the rib cage and back to create a space here? All right, now second pose. Go ahead and bring yourself up and turn yourself to face the left side of the mat. That right foot has to travel over, so it's more in line with your left knee and calf. Foot can either be flexed or foot flat. I like to have something underneath the hand here. Inhale, bring the right arm up, lift right ribs. Exhale, draw that right hip towards the left, bringing the right hand down onto the props. Left arm is coming up and over. There is a danger in this pose. I say danger, I mean it's not like it's going to cause like a forest fire, but if the arm is down in front of your face, then you're actually kind of twisting rather than getting side bend. Endeavor that your chest stays facing the side. Arm is coming up and over, but without crossing your face. Inhale, lift left side ribs up. Exhale, glide the right shoulder blade down. Use this shift of deep breathing to get into the side ribs. Instead of the transition we made last time, you're coming into straddle forward bend. Hands come down, turn the right foot in, tuck the left toes, and come into straddle. I'm going to turn around so I can still face you. So feet are about 4 feet apart. Toes are turned very slightly in. Go ahead and bend the knees a little bit. Exhale, hang down into the forward bend. If you end up with your head on the floor, narrow your stance. I always find it interesting when people are showing me like, oh look, my heels are down in down dog. Your heels would be down in down dog if your down dog was short. Anyway, sometimes it's about measurements than it is about progress. Half lift. Set the hands under the shoulders. Inhale, scoop your ribs towards the side of your mat. Exhale, articulate your pelvis. You're pointing your sit bones up and fold the ribs down, feeling for creating a space between ribs and pelvis. Inhale, come back into that half lift. Exhale, fold. Half lift. All right, now, if you walk the hands over to the side, chances are you will be twisting your torso. So the collarbones are actually rotating around, so they're more in line with your foot. I am interested in you walking your hands over, but the chest stays facing the left leg. So there's no rotation, it's a side bend. Take the left hand outside your left foot on the fingertips. If you can't reach, then put your hand onto a block. Right hand is going in front of the left ankle to hold the ankle. Inhale, lean the right ribs to the right. Exhale, bend the right elbow, sending the right elbow tip towards the ground as the right ribs go to the right. So similar sensation to that child's pose side bend. Inhale, bring yourself through center. Second side. Take the hands over towards the right leg. Right hand outside the right foot, maybe on a block. Left hand around the front of the shin. Inhale, lean the left ribs to the left, neck relaxed. Exhale, bend the left elbow. Use a push through the right hand, a pull with the left hand. So very similar dynamic to that child's pose. Inhale, bring yourself through center, walk your hands forwards. This time, step the feet back into that plank. Move the shoulders in front of the wrists. Set the knees down. Exhale, bend elbows, shoulders away from the ears as you lower. Hands are going to stay where they are, so hands are roughly underneath the elbows. Inhale, bring your shoulder blades up towards your ears, squeeze them towards the ceiling and roll your shoulder blades back. Lift the skull to meet that. So this is like a cobra variation. Pull with the hands. Exhale, tuck tailbone. Inhale, perhaps lifting the legs. Stronger day still, squeeze the arms towards the ceiling so the hands hover from the mat. Deep breath in. Exhale, lower down. Press into your hands, bring yourself up. The action you're going to do in down dog will create a lengthening sensation through the lower back. I'm just going to show you quickly to camera what will happen. So you will be lifting up to your tiptoes and then flipping the heels over to the side so they're parallel to the back of the mat. And this is going to create the side bend through the more open side. It is important that you feel an even distribution of the weight in your hands to create this. Wrist sensitive, if you're taking weight not on your wrist today, you can do this on elbows. I recommend you do hands clasped. It'll just make it easier for you to kind of work into this a wee bit more. All right, so either downward facing dog. If you're doing down dog, start in a plank position. That'll give you a good length. And press the hips up and back. Inhale, lift up to tiptoes. Exhale, flip the heels over towards the left-hand side. Right side ribs is getting long. And press into your right hand. Switch on abdominal breathing. Inhale, come up through center. Exhale, flip the heels to the right. Press into that left hand.
Inhale, bring the knees up to center. Exhale, set the knees down. Take a deep breath in, feeling for a neutral spine. Exhale, step your left foot to the outside of your left hand. I'm just going to move these props a little bit out of the way. So left foot is forwards. Turn your left foot to the left 90 degrees, but then come into the lunge position. So left foot is turned out, heel is down, and shift into the lunge. Lengthen your ribs forwards and use the left buttock muscles to actively widen the left knee. Line up the right hand with your right hip. So right hand, hip, and heel are in a line. Tuck the right toes and pivot onto your right side. So you're creating this big side bend for the right side of your waist. Strongly flex the right foot. This should help for any complication through the knee. Allow the right ribs to hang down. Left arm is casual. Inhale. Reach with the left arm, take it overhead, lift the pelvis and press into your right palm. Right shoulder blade is coming down. Exhale, lower the hips, squeeze your left elbow and left ribs towards your left hip. Inhale, lift. Exhale, squeeze the elbow towards your hip. So a wee bit of core work. Inhale, lift. Exhale, squeeze elbow towards your hip. Inhale, lift. Exhale, bring that in. Pause, hands come down. Walk the hands around through center. Step that leg back. Deep breath in and more of a neutral spine. Exhale, step the right foot forwards this time. Turn the right foot out. Use your buttock muscles to widen the knee and then lower into the hips. So it's an unusual lunge for sure. Press into the foot as if you intend to stand on it. It should stop like any odd actions around the ankles happening. Stage 2, line up the left hand, left hip, left heel. Tuck the left toes and then pivot onto that left side. Left shoulder becomes the high point. Left hip is the low point. And if you feel like this is too much on that left wrist, consider taking it further forwards. I recommend keeping it on your yoga mat. Pay particular care if you're practicing on a yoga mat on carpet. I know it sounds like a really great idea, but usually you end up dipping into the heel of your hand too much. So just be vigilant about that. Inhale, reach that right arm overhead, lift the pelvis, push into your foot. Exhale, squeeze your right elbow towards your right hip. Inhale, open. Exhale, squeeze the elbow towards the hip. Inhale, open. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, open. Exhale, squeeze elbow towards hip. Inhale, open. Exhale, squeeze elbow towards hip. Inhale, open. Now this time, hands come down, set the knees down, step back. This may seem early for this pose, but it's a particularly useful way to work this. Deep breath in. Exhale, squeeze your left knee as close to your left wrist as possible. Rotate the leg and set the shin down for pigeon. Right toes start to ease your hips towards the back of the mat. Flex the left foot and press down through that foot. Now, if your hips aren't down, don't panic, but I also don't want you to chuck loads of stuff under there. If you're going to pad anywhere, a rolled up blanket under your left thigh can work really well. Come down towards your elbows. If staying up on hands is fine for you, stay up on hands. If you're on elbows, pull with your arms. I'm a big fan of the right toes tucked to pull the heel back, not only so that it takes the pressure out of the right knee joint, but also it is allowing me to do a back traction by pulling my hips towards the back of the mat as I do that cobra pull to the front of the mat. from here, hands are going to go forwards. We're coming into that same side bend. Walk your hands over to the left. Reach actively with that right arm. Push with the left hand, but pull with the right. Use this to help create a replication of that shearing of the ribs to the side like we had in flank stretch earlier. They're using this as a back spacer. If you want a wee bit extra, if you move your left foot to the left and tuck the toes, you just get a wee bit of extra arc through that right side low back. Inhale, bring yourself through center. Hands under shoulders, come back onto all fours. A few rounds of cat between pigeons is a good shout. Inhale, lift the skull, lift the sit bones, squeeze your hands towards your knees. Exhale, tuck tailbone round into the back, press into your hands. Inhale, tilt the pelvis the other way, lift the skull, lift the sit bones. Exhale, tuck tailbone down. Inhale, tilt. Now pause, deep breath in. Exhale, squeeze the right knee towards your right arm. Turn the thigh. So the shin is looking more like a number 7. Left leg is starting to walk back. Can think about that for a second. Right foot is active and pressing down. And then coming down perhaps towards elbows. You're welcome to stay up on hands. You're welcome to grab your props and use anything you need under the elbows to give you extra support if necessary. If you wish, you can do a pull with your arms as you tuck the left toes and pull back. Alright, now stage 2 is the twist. Arms are going forwards. Walk your hands over to the right. Well, I say twist, more of a side bend. So as the ribs go over to the right, reach with that left hand, but pull with it. Push with your right hand. Take care that you don't start lifting through that right side of pelvis. So you stay really vigilant about the weight distribution, aiming to affect the ribs and lower back without disturbing the pelvis. So you need to get a little bit more subtle with those arm gestures. So pull with the left, push with the right. Again, if you want a wee bit more arc, that left foot can go to the right to create a little bit more of that curve to the side. Inhale, walk your hands back around through center. Instead of going through tabletop, go ahead and swing your left leg forwards. So you're coming towards a seated position. As you move into the next pose, there are a couple of different ways that you can support this. In general, if you know that cross-legged is tight and you're scooped under, even working with a leg forwards, your hamstrings are the thing that are like pulling you under. So you're still going to be in that position. So you might find that something underneath the knee might help you with your access to the pose because it's giving you support in that bent leg. You might also find that starting elevated and giving your legs a slightly different base position will allow you to get into this single leg side bend. If you've got usable wall space, putting your pelvis and your shoulders against the wall and being able to lean back against that can be particularly useful, especially if your mid back is really sharp or painful or spasmy. Like that can be super useful. So if you want to use the wall, you're welcome to. If you feel like your hamstrings are alright and you don't need the support underneath your pelvis, then that's fine. You may still want to have something underneath your knee because it gives you something that you can rest on as you move into the side bend. So decide you can also do this with absolutely nothing. Inhale, lift the left arm up. Lift the left rib. This should feel familiar. Exhale, lean over your left thigh, focusing on your underarm, going just to the inside of the knee, and either setting the elbow or the hand down, or maybe setting the ribs down onto the leg. Inhale, bring the right arm up and over, palm faces down. Exhale, wrap right shoulder blade towards the underarm. If you've got left hand flat on the floor, you can do a wee bit of a pull with that to help create some more space through the right side ribs. Allow your neck to relax. If relaxed neck feels almost like an advanced pose here, whatever your left elbow is resting on, whether it's your leg or your props, you can support the head and the hand. And this will allow you to work with a neutral neck rather than like a collapsed down neck. Inhale, reach with that right arm, bring yourself up, take your time as you switch between sides, especially if you've got a really reactive lower back. Changing sides, go ahead and swap your props around, if you were using any. Right leg can be a little bit bent, remember this can be done without any props. Pelvis is in that side facing position rather than facing forwards. Right toes are pointing up, if your foot is off to the side, chances are your knee is rolling off to the side also. Inhale, bring the right arm up, lift right side ribs. Exhale, lean down either onto your leg or onto the props to the inside of the leg, or even ribs can rest onto the leg. Inhale, bring the left arm up and over. Exhale, wrap left shoulder blade towards the underarm. Neck is relaxed or the head can be supported in your right hand. Breathe in a way that speaks to left side ribs and left side of the abdomen. Inhale to reach with that left arm towards the back of the mat to bring your torso up. Then move any props that you were using aside. So you may not use them when you come down for the next part. You're coming down for bridge just to get your legs switched on, and then some supine spinal twist. So when you move into laying down spinal twist, especially the bottom half of your mat, obviously your legs are going to go side to side. So you may want to do a little bit of housekeeping before then. You might still want to have stuff nearby, but just so you don't bump into it when you get there. Come on down first, set the feet so the feet are about hip distance apart and parallel. You can check that by reaching your arms down by your sides, and if you can touch your heels, they're going to be close enough and parallel. If you can't touch them, but they won't come closer, we can work with that. Draw your shoulders down away from your ears, palms face up. Now think, you have done a lot of work for your sides, your back ribs, your pelvis, you've opened your hips, you've opened your quadriceps. Bridge should feel different after all of that. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, press into your feet. Imagine you were holding something at the inner thighs. Tuck tailbone and lift pelvis up. You may find that allowing the arms to drape towards the back of the mat is a better rest position for your shoulders and your upper back. Take another deep breath in. Exhale, lower through your shoulders, mid-back, low back, and then set pelvis down. Bring your knees into your chest and open your arms out to the sides, so like a capital T. Deep breath in. Exhale, send both legs over to the left, coming into laying down spinal twist. Legs can be bent, they can be straight, whatever feels good. Inhale to reach the right arm overhead, and take your left hand to where your right thigh meets your pelvis. Press with your left hand to create a tractioning sensation for right side lower back. Not only switch on abdominal breathing, but also do the action of exhaling to pull the belly muscles in.
Take the arms back out to the side. Inhale, bring your right leg back and then your left. Exhale, send the knees over to the right. Left arm is reaching towards the back of the mat if that's comfortable enough for the shoulder. This just replicates that side bend feel. Right hand goes to where left thigh meets pelvis and presses to help create some length through that left side lower back. If your left arm isn't happy being overhead, take it anywhere, either down by your side or out alongside the body. And use deep breathing here to help bring the pose to life. Remember I was saying earlier, it's really what is animating this. Now you're already on your right hand side. Continue rolling in that direction and then use your arms to bring yourself up from the ground. Once you're there, come onto all fours. From all fours, press up the floor away from you, look forwards and point your sit bones back. Deep breath in. Exhale, without moving your pelvis, lean your left ribs towards your left hip. Inhale through center. Exhale, side bend right. Inhale through center. Exhale, side bend left. Inhale through center. Exhale, side bend right. Inhale through center. Take your hands forward so it's more like a plank position. Deep breath in. Exhale, hang your hips down towards the ground, but lift the skull. So it's like a modified high cobra. Lift the chest. Use a wee bit of a toe tuck to help pull your heels to the back of the room. Child's pose. Exhale, push the hips back so you can either stay toes tucked or unfurl the feet by pressing the hips back towards the hands. Inhale, come forwards, but come down onto your abdomen. Once you're down on your abdomen, stack your hands, turn your knees in towards each other a little bit, and then set the forehead down onto your stacked hands. Take a couple of rounds of deep breathing, pressing the abdomen into the mat first, so deliberately playing with abdominal pressure. So a few rounds like that. You're welcome to stay in that place for Shavasana, or if you wish, you can take Shavasana laying down on your back, so maybe just rolling around, or using any of the props that you have. Pay particular attention to a Shavasana pose that will feel the best for your lower back, and ideally one that is vaguely symmetrical, so you don't need to shift sides halfway through. So set yourself up for that. At the end of Shavasana, I will bring you back. begin to deepen your breath. Come back to that audible whisper sound and gradually expand it so that it feels more full. Direct your senses to your lower back and your hips. Begin to take a wee bit of movement into fingers and toes. If you're on your abdomen, use your hands under your shoulders to bring yourself up. If you're on your back, set your feet to the floor, taking maybe any arm reaches that feel good here. And then roll to one side and move towards a seated position. Low back tight, maybe you're sitting up on a block. So choose something sensible. Once you're up, bring your hands together at your chest. Take a very deep breath in. Exhale, bow forwards. Namaste.